Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. All right, cool, man. We were talking, had to take a pee break. We're talking about that abundance mindset. I want to know a little bit about mixed martial arts because I know you guys have like your pro class where you do MMA classes, but by definition, mixed martial arts, there's a lot to know, right? So it's like, are you the boxing instructor and the Muay Thai guy and the Jiu Jitsu guy and the wrestling guy against the cage? Or is that more of abundance mindset where like, hey, if we got a fighter up and coming, we're going to get him 5 different coaches and we'll figure it out once the guy gets paid? What are the, like, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the economics of that look like? Because I imagine you got to invest in some of these guys for years before you make any money back on them or they make any money or there's any success. Like, how the fuck does the MMA world work transitioning from jiu-jitsu to actually what we see on the UFC?
Well, I'll just go out on a limb and just say that I hate MMA. Everything about it. They don't get paid enough. It's hard. It's lonely. You get put into these contracts that you have no wiggle room, but they'll cut you in a heartbeat. It's like pimps and hoes. Like, I hate it. The reason that I coach it is because I fall in love with my students. And it's like, if you're going to embark on this, I'm going to go with you. And I'm going to make sure that I do the due diligence for you. And so, like, we'll use Adam as an example. He's amazing. And mark my words, that kid is going to he's going to go places. Little Raul Rosas, I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. He got signed to Contenders at 17 years old.
I saw that.
He will, I know his opponent. His opponent trains with us a lot. Really good dude. I think Raul's going to put on a show, and I think he's going to have a UFC fight before he turns 18 years old.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And how long has that kid been with you?
About a year now. About a year.
Wow.
But he's been, he's got a ton of fights. Like Derek Rayfield too.
Yeah.
He's kind of like my son. I put him through high school. He lived in my backyard in the Jack Shack. But
he was telling me this, dude. He was like, yeah, I left Costa Mesa when Coach came up here to move to Henderson, and I just moved in with him to work out. I'm like, oh, what were you, like 20, 25? He's like, no, I'm 20 right now. I was 13 or 14 when I left home for jiu-jitsu. I was like, what the fuck? This is crazy.
That's the craziest story ever. Our grand opening here was 7 years ago. So I'm sitting on the mats and I look up and I see Derek, and I love him. I love him so much, man. Like, he's literally like my son. Like, I love him that much. And he was so skinny and just this little dork with a shaved head. And I look up and I felt like disoriented a little bit because I did not expect to see him. And his stepdad walked him in and was like, hey, Derek wanted to be here for your grand opening, so I drove him out here. And he's like, I'll see you in a little bit. And I was like, all right. Derek walked in the gym. He had a bag with him. And then he was with us for like 2 months.
Just
didn't leave. And then he was just doing this, like, I'm coming out to Vegas for 3 or 4 months and I'm getting homeschooled, and I didn't have any control over him at all, He was just kind of doing his thing, just like a kid, And I'll never forget, my wife was telling me, like, hey, we should just adopt him. We should just, that way we could get him in school. You can get him in college. You could get him wrestling, because he was wrestling, but, and it was on Father's Day. And I remember, like, that's not a conversation that you could really have with someone's parents. Like, hey, let me get this kid and take control of him. And literally on that same day, his mom called me and was like, you know what? Like, he's starting to get a little unruly, and the only person that he listens to is you. Why don't you just take him, like, through high school and get him into school? Do that. Would you do that? And I'm like, fucking done. I love him. Send him. And he moved in with me, and then we had to go through the whole adoption process so he could wrestle, right? And so here he went to Green Valley High School.
Yeah.
And here they have a sit-out year. So you can't move. You have to sit out. And so what they thought was happening was he was coming from another school in town and was just moving to Green Valley, living with us so he could compete for Green Valley. So we went through the whole adoption process, and then there was like a hang up, and he ended up missing that year of wrestling. So he actually didn't finish the adoption process just because the insurance, his mom's insurance, would have covered him. It was like, okay, if you can't wrestle, then you should just stay with your mom, and then I'll just be your guardian when you're here.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much how it works. So he and my daughter have been friends since they were kids, like training partners, since they were very little.
Yeah, they're both 20.
They're 20. Same year in high school. I mean, he's older than her, but he redshirted as like an 8th grader. you know, so
Stud.
yeah, so he was like a 19-year-old senior, you know. My daughter was like a 17-year-old senior, but they were in the same class, same wrestling team growing up, same college wrestling team, and you know, best friends. So it just worked out great, you know.
That's crazy. So yeah, tell me about MMA. Like, what when you're going on that journey with them, do you bring in other boxing coaches, or like how, I wouldn't even know where to start with the training, because it's like the body can only take so much punishment on one day. There's so many facets of MMA. You know, you guys, you look at where the sport has evolved. You look at where jiu-jitsu has evolved, and then figure every other discipline is evolving. Like, I wouldn't even know as a coach where to start or how to keep up.
Okay, so let's say good enough, right? So like I'm good enough to get somebody to a certain level of striking. Like I'm a pretty good striker. Like people don't know that, but also I own a kickboxing gym in Orange County called Classic Fight Team. Tyler Wombles is one of the best kickboxing coaches in the world. He coaches Raymond Daniels. Raymond Daniels, like one of the craziest strikers like on the planet. But it's in Huntington Beach, and he and I, when I was in Orange County and I was coaching fighters, and I was also teamed up with Colin Oyama, who's also like a legendary striking kickboxing coach. And so like half of the team was 10th Planet Team Oyama, like Chito Vera, Alex Perez, Carla Esparza, and then like Mark Munoz, Matt Lopez, like some of these other guys used Tyler as a kickboxing coach. Tyler worked for me. So back when I had Tyler with me every day, it was really easy. Tyler was teaching out of my gym and was doing so great that I opened him a gym next door. And then we opened up a boxing gym next door, my other buddy, Raw Talent. So it was 10th Planet Costa Mesa, Raw Talent Boxing, and Classic Muay Thai, like all in one hall. So the fighters would just park and then they'd be there for 5 hours and they would just train anyway. So it was easy back then. And, but like as an amateur fighter, like we'll use Adam, for example, he hasn't always had a striking coach. Right? So like I kind of run drills like striking to wrestling to takedowns, because really everyone knows at the end of the day, we want to take you down and beat the shit out of you. That's what we want to do. So I'm good enough to get him to a certain level. Now that I'm in town, I use Eddie Baracco. He's a pretty famous striking coach. Like he's coached some of the best fighters in the world, fought for, like many UFC titles. Eric Nixick is another guy out of Extreme Couture. He's like the head coach over there. He's good on pads. He wasn't a striker, but he's good on pads and he knows how to coach. So he handles, and then James Gifford, Coach Giff, he's a boxing guy from Southie that Dana brought here back in the day. And so I try to like funnel my guys to those guys, right? Because ultimately fighting is 98% mental. And so I'm not going to travel with you.
Yeah. No, you say it's 98% mental until I'm fucking too slow, old, and fat, and my knees don't work to sprawl when somebody takes me down.
Well, there's that too, but that's still mental. That's like you not knowing that you're too old to do this shit. Like it's still mental either way you cut it.
Yeah, Nick was really nice to me. Nick got so deep in on a double leg takedown yesterday and lifted me up in the air, could have suplexed me and snapped my neck. And he's like, you're an old man, Scott. I let you down easy. I'm like,
you're
thanks,
pretty
bro.
good, man. Don't sell yourself short. You're good.
No, I can't defend the double leg. So we're gonna work on that next time I'm in there.
Let's do it.
But so yeah, so like I mean, obviously the big payday, unfortunately, even if they treat you like shit and you're in these like usury abusive contracts, the money, unless you're Gordon Ryan, the best guy in the world at jiu-jitsu, the money's still in MMA, right? In fighting, like that's how these guys can make a living. Or
actually, the money in MMA is terrible.
Really?
I mean, I've been lucky enough. I'm Lance Palmer's coach, so I'm lucky enough to have won $1 million with him twice. But that's an anomaly. That's not normal. If you come into the UFC, I'm actually not sure what the entry-level UFC is, but let's call it $14,000 to show and $14,000 to win. And now I'm not doing this for the money, right? But my rate technically would be 10%, and then the striking coach would be 10%, and then the manager would be anywhere between 10 and 20%. So you think about it, let's just say a guy's booking $14,000 to show, $14,000 to win. He goes through a whole fight camp and then loses, and he gets paid $14,000, and he's got to give up a minimum of 30% to his coaches. What does that leave them with? That's nothing.
Nothing.
That's nothing.
You get $8,000 to live off of, even if you're fighting every six.
You're fighting if you're lucky in the UFC, you're going to fight 3 times a year.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. And then now there's Joe Benavidez. He makes good money. I don't know what his contract is, but I'll never forget the first check he gave me. I never look at money when people pay me. They hand me a check, I put it in my pocket, and I say, thank you, right? And I went home and I texted him, and I'm like, did you write this wrong? Are you sure? And he's like, I wish I could pay you more, coach. Like, he's an overpayer by a wide margin, you know? But that's an anomaly. It really is. And it's so now, like, I oftentimes, like, I know the backstory of these kids. So I oftentimes, like, hey, keep the money. I'm good. I don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, I do that a lot. And, but yeah, the money's not good. But if kind of the way, I mean, I don't like OnlyFans at all. Like, it bothers me tremendously. But I believe that if you can build your platform, see, here's the problem that people, like, I've trained some of the best fighters in the world that were making a lot of money when they were relevant, and they are the hot chick. We go to the bar and they cannot buy a drink. Everyone's buying them drinks. They were getting custom shoes, custom suits, cars, car company, you know, dealerships were giving them cars, leasing them to them for free. And then all of a sudden, think about this. This was like one of the big realizations. Anthony Burchak, he's in town. He's a UFC fighter, one of my black belts. He owns 10th Planet Tucson with me.
And by the way, a super nice guy.
Super nice guy. I can't remember what year it was, but it was International Fight Week between July 1st and July 7th. And we were at T-Mobile, maybe 2017. And we were walking in. And so I'm gonna frame this for you so you could understand how quickly people become irrelevant. So Gray Maynard, Frankie Edgar, one of the best fights of all time. Do you remember those title fights?
Yeah.
So there's curtain jerkers, right? Like prelims.
Yeah.
First fight on the prelims. Nobody's even in the crowd. You're just kind of walking in.
Right.
So Anthony Burchak and I, we outside at the beer truck, we buy a big 24-ounce tall can of, like, I don't know, Miller Lite or some shit. And we're out there drinking it. And we try to get in, and they're like, no, you can't take the beer inside. And I'm like, but they sell this beer right there. And they're like, it doesn't matter. So we had to sit out there and drink it, right? So then we walk in, and Gray Maynard is fighting. In the daytime, it's still light outside. And I'm like, that's the bully Gray Maynard, that guy. What's he doing fighting right now? He was headlining just what seemed like yesterday against Frankie Edgar in one of the best fights of all time, when Frankie Edgar was the 155-pound champ before he went down in weight. And I turned to Anthony and I'm like, that's how quickly you get forgot about in here. Yeah. And so I'm trying to tell these guys, like, don't look at it like I'm fighting for 14 and 14. Look at it like you're going to use ESPN and you're going to use the platform to grow your platform. And the biggest problem with these kids is they're trying to figure out what to sell. And I'm like, that's the wrong way to think about it. Build the platform and then sell whatever you want to the platform.
Right.
You know, like you're doing it all wrong. Like you don't have the pet rock idea right now. Just grow the platform. While you have the fame, grow the platform. Get on Instagram, get on Twitter, grow it. And if you grow it, I mean, I'm making money off of Reels right now. I bought a Suron electric bike, $5,000 bike off of Instagram. They're just paying my PayPal every month. And I went home and I was like, honey, my neighbor, we go through all the tunnels here in Vegas on these. It's so much fun. And my neighbor's got a bunch of them. And I'm like, I want to buy one of these. And my wife's like, how much is it? And I'm like, it's $5,000. And she's like, go ahead, like, do it. But I'm like, man, I really can't pull the trigger on the $5,000. And then I'm like, man, I've been getting money in my PayPal. I get emails, $500 here, $300 there.
And these are from your workout reels, your
all the stupid shit on Reels. Now that it's slowed down because I'm just posting a lot about my daughter's golf, and no one really likes that shit. But so I looked at on my PayPal account and I was like, holy, I can buy it off of PayPal. So I went ahead and bought the bike. But I tell these kids, like, Andy, I'm like, bro, you're famous right now. You need to be striking while the iron's hot. Yeah. Like, you're so caught up in, like, what is this going to event pay me to show up, when you just need to use that it's on Fight Pass and that platform to grow your platform. And then you could start just, you could start just making bank on instructionals, like all kinds of shit, you know? And that's kind of like how I'm trying to condition his head to think, you know? And
there's that kid in the UFC, a good fighter, but not yet a champion, with the pink hair.
Sean O'Malley.
Yeah. Whoever is managing his shit, they've got it dialed in. Like, I'm a fan, but I wouldn't say I'm like of UFC. I'm a fan of, you know, fight sports. I'm more of a boxing fan, like a boxing purist than a UFC fan. But I'll pop down $80 for a pay-per-view. But somehow that fucking guy keeps showing up in my algorithm. You know, he's selling this or he's selling that. Like, he's clearly got his persona that he's developed. So if he snaps his leg tomorrow and can never fight again, he's got a platform. He's got a million viewers. Like, he's doing it. He's doing it right from the PR side.
He's big on Twitch too, like huge. He's a huge gamer, like really good. And people don't even know this about Andy. Andy is a top Call of Duty killer on Call of Duty. Oh, dude. So good.
All right, cool, man. So you were talking about how you're just encouraging your competitors to build their platform and do their thing. Like, where do you think the sport goes from here? Because I agree with you with all the abusive contracts and whatnot in MMA, but the beauty about UFC being just a lifelong boxing fan is, holy fuck, man. You know, boxing now, we've got 13 weight divisions and 5 or 6 major belts with like 3 other competitors. And you got fucking Golden Boy doesn't want to talk to Bob Arum. So the beauty about the UFC is they can say, hey, fuck you. I'm going to make the fight that I want to fight. And if that, you know, that obviously Dana White wants to make. And if you don't want to fight that, you're not in the promotion. Oh, and by the way, if there's another promotion that's coming up, we're gonna buy them, or we're gonna do a fight night every time they have a fight night to just run them into bankruptcy. So that is kind of the beauty of the UFC. And I'm kind of seeing a little bit of the thing right now in jiu-jitsu where it's like, it's really segmented. You got the Eddie Bravo Invitational, and then you got Flow Sports trying to do some stuff. And then you got people just doing online shit like the Subs on the Shore. And it's all cool, but for real money to come into the game, like, somebody has to emerge as the big player. So, like, where do you think the future of jiu-jitsu goes? Like, if you've got a guy working out with you who shows a lot of promise and he's a teenager or a young 20-year-old, are you telling him, hey, man, go become a fireman and do jiu-jitsu on the side? Or is there a career in jiu-jitsu?
There's definitely a career in jiu-jitsu for sure. Like, but I think the real money happens in gym ownership if you do it the right way. So what you do is you build your platform, right? You go out and you compete. You make your bones competing, and then at the time when you start to get a little bit too old to compete every weekend, you got to transition, and then you got to start developing talent, and then like doing that's the end goal. And so everyone that I really care about, and then also too, like back when I was coming up, it was like 10th Planet Brooklyn, that's what I want, like Manhattan, and now it's not that at all. Like, I want to go to Sioux Falls. Right. I want to do 10th Planet Sioux Falls. I want a place. I want to go somewhere. Like, I'm encouraging all my kids, like, okay, like, you can open up in Vegas. That's cool. You can go back to California. You can go to Jersey. You can do whatever you want.
Don't go to California or Jersey.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, this literally just happened. This conversation just happened yesterday. And I'm like, but in reality, I'd be looking at Middle America somewhere, preferably somewhere that's a Republican state where they're not going to mess with you too much and it's going to be easy to do business. I mean, I just had a student open up in Mission Viejo, and it took him a year to get open just because of like permits and everything. And
jiu-jitsu is like the lowest barrier to entry. You throw down some mats, you get an empty space, and I mean, it's not like there's gym equipment and food stands and shit in your gym. Like, the fact that it takes a year to open is just bonkers.
Yeah, you know, it's just a cash grab. You know, I've probably opened 12 gyms in California, and, you know, it's conditional usage permit. Oh, martial arts is it's not permitted for this shopping center. So you gotta hire a guy from the city. Then you gotta get a professional architect he's gonna just draw the landscaping in the front of this building. And then you gotta figure out parking. Then you gotta do a traffic impact study, and then you gotta do this and you gotta do that. And then the final day to get signed off, they come with a measuring tape, and then they measure the toilet for ADA. And if the toilet's too close to the wall, you gotta blow that whole bathroom out. Even a lot of times they don't allow grandfathering to go in. Like, when you come in, they're like, hey, this has been wrong since 1960. You need to fix it. And I've even had a guy on his own dime that we had to do it in Vegas, but it was because it was never hooked up. We had to run a sewer line from the building to the actual sewer in the back of the building. You could see the trench is brand new. Luckily for me, the landlord paid for it. But I've actually heard where people had to do that. They just requested it. Like, hey, you got to change the sewer line. This thing's from 1960. But it works. But yeah, but you just need to change it. You're moving in. And you're opening a gym. This was like a clothing store. Like nobody used the bathroom before. Now you're going to have 100 people in here using the bath. Just crazy stuff, you know? So I actually think in jiu-jitsu, there's money to be made, you know, but just like in anything, you have to diversify and you have to be able to expand well beyond what you're actually doing, making money.
Yeah. And you talked about the power of Joe Rogan talking about jiu-jitsu, increasing the popularity. And it's so funny. I was listening one day to Joe Rogan. He was talking about jiu-jitsu. And then I was listening to this guy, Professor Scott Galloway, who's one of the few liberals who I can listen to on his podcast because he talks about tech and business. And he talked about this thing that I thought was really interesting where, especially because of COVID and especially because of like wealthier people getting wealthier and poorer people getting poorer, he's like, if you're wealthy, you can basically avoid the melting pot of America. You can have a home theater system that rivals going to the movies. You can have a Peloton to where you don't even have to work out with people that don't look like you, smell like you, don't make the same amount of money. And when I go to the jiu-jitsu gym, it's crazy that there's some balling out of control professionals in there all the way down to, dudes that are, making a living. They're custodians or they're working at Chick-fil-A or whatever. Like I don't even think you have a normal student, but what's a normal jiu-jitsu student?
Okay. So so you could call it like a student avatar.
Okay.
It would be you. Honestly, like that's who you would target, right? So like you target like a family man, someone that's married, because if you're trying to build a business around 20-year-olds, they get fired, they get girls pregnant, they get promoted, they get transferred, they move, they're not as stable, right? So that's the thing is like everybody goes after that shiny thing. So the backbone of a lot of gyms is some Brazilian kid that they brought here and he's a rolling stone, he's just going to be in and out. And I've always made it like it doesn't appear to be that at our gym because of what you see. But in Henderson, there's over 500 students in there. The backbone is core, solid people. Like anytime there's a family that's training, I'm like, hey, just talk to Pat. Like the regular prices shouldn't really apply if you're trying to sign up like 4 or 5 people. Like you shouldn't be paying a mortgage to train here, right. And so like when you're looking at your perfect student avatar, it would be like someone that's stable and someone with a family, and that they're going to be local for a while. Like I think the average student lasts about 9 months.
Really?
Yeah. Like in jiu-jitsu, it's a really high turnover. I mean, come on.
Why is that?
Just so much injury. Yeah. Much injury.
Well, and you just get pounded and you get fucking destroyed that first year or two. It's like, I've been doing this almost 3 years and I feel like I can almost get destroyed safely. It's like that first couple years are just brutal. If you're willing to roll with everybody in the gym, you're just gonna get fucked up for like 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, and then there's this like yearling conundrum that happens where like you're a CrossFitter, you're fit, you're 200 pounds, you come in and train, and I don't tap you. And you're like, okay, cool. I rolled with the instructor. He didn't tap me. I sign you up. And then a year goes by. And I'm just wrecking you on the mats. And you're like, you come to me and you're like, listen, man, like on my first day, I was so good. Like no one beat me up, man. And now I'm a year in and I actually think I'm getting worse. And it's like, no, actually what's happening is you were analog or you're still analog. You need more reps to get to the digital speed. So when you first came in, do you remember Rolodex?
Yeah.
So you had a Rolodex and there was only one card in it. And It was defense, panic. That's it. And plus, I'm trying to get your credit card, right?
Right.
And then as in this first year, you haven't done enough reps to be fast. So every time you come in, I give you a new card. Armbar from closed guard, butterfly sweep, scissor sweep. So you're still on this Rolodex. I'm rolling with you, but you're actually like really good now. So I'm turning the level up just to stay ahead of you. But now you're attacking offense, which is opening you up instead of just like super tight and tense. And I can feel that you're not as tense and you're thinking more, but you're just a step behind. So listen, you're actually getting better. So this first year, you're just learning so much that you're just bogged down by the amount of information you get. Second year, you start to smooth all that out and you start to transition from analog to digital. And then by the time you get into the third year, you start to manage your tension a little bit, hopefully. So now you're rolling less tension, which will cause you to not get injured either. So if you can make it to year 3 in jiu-jitsu, like blue belt, like about to get a purple belt, you should be good. Because really the thing that's going to get you injured is being tense.
Yeah.
Like the tenser you are, the more likely you're going to get an athletic injury. You know, but you have to get through all that shit first.
So you habitually promote people slow in like a belt process, which it's kind of silly to me. These guys that are like super in love with like, how many stripes do I have? And I go to another gym and they're like, oh, are you like a brand new blue belt? And I'm like, yeah, but also I haven't put a gi on for a year because I've been training at 10th Planet. And then, by the way, kudos to what you and Eddie Bravo and all those other guys have built, because every other gym I've guested at, when I'm like, oh, I work out at 10th Planet, but like, I'm not that 10th Planet guy. I'm not Andy Varela. That's just where I work out. It's like their fucking Super Bowl. They want to go to town and be like, oh, fuck, can I fuck up a 10th Planet guy? And I'm like, this sucks, bro. I just wanted to get like a workout in. I'm gonna start telling them I'm from, you know.
But do you smash them? Like, do you have success?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. When I go with guys my own skill and age, and then like, there's always the black belt guy who's like, oh, you're 10th Planet, let's roll. I'm like, fuck, bro, I've been doing this for like 12 months.
And they wait until you're like 7 rounds in, and then they try to crush you, and you're like, bro, congratulations, you won practice, nerd.
So my point in saying that is like your kind of methodology is you like to promote really slow, and like there's not a big like belt culture. Like there's not a lot of ego in your gym, which shocks me because I've been in there in open mats where like Cowboy Cerrone and these 3 other UFC guys who I've seen for the last decade, they're in there rolling with dudes that are like postmen and they're 3 months in. Yeah. So it's like, and there's no ego, which blows my mind. So kudos to you for building that. But your thought process on progressing or promoting, or do you even give a shit about any of these belts? Like, does it really matter? Like what's your philosophy on honoring people's journey, I guess is what I'm saying.
So the outliers are the competitors. The bulk of our gym does not compete. It feels like everybody's competing, but that's really like 10% of the gym, right? So 90% don't. So when you get a belt from me, I want it to mean something to you, right? So if you get it too early or before you think, like, I think everybody should compete in belt once just to prove to you that you're that good. So when I give you a purple belt, you're like, man, like you have those questions like, am I really good? Because if you only train at our gym, you're just going to get beat up, right? So that's why I want people to compete. Like, go compete and see how good you are. And data drives everything. And if you look at what we're doing works. Like, our guys just go out and smash people in rank, right? And so it's like when they get promoted, there's gravity and weight to it. And that's really important to me. I don't want somebody to just be like, oh, I got this belt from him. I've been here for 3 months. It's like, no, you're going to cut your teeth. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be hard. You're going to feel like you got passed over 3 or 4 times. And when you get it, it's going to mean something and you're going to know you deserve it. I mean, my daughter's been training since she was 4 years old. She wrestles in college. She's an absolute savage, and she got her purple belt last summer.
Yeah, she's a savage. I don't know a girl that she won't give a run for their money, and like she'll go toe to toe with a bunch of the dudes her size.
Yeah, but it's like you're mad because you've been here for 5 minutes and you want your blue belt. My daughter's been training for 16 years and she's a purple belt, and she's wrestling in college.
Holy fuck! How's she doing, by the way?
She's good. She's good. I mean, they haven't started yet. Like, she's an RA there, so she had to take off a couple weeks early to get. Yeah. They're actually like onboarding everybody today, and class starts tomorrow. But she's been in the weight room. Like, she's not really grappling. Her and another RA are wrestlers, and so they're in the wrestling room drilling and stuff. But they're gonna get cracking soon.
That's nuts, man. Yeah, I want to get your opinion on this because I remember it probably was only 10 years ago that Dana White and some other owners or whatever of different fight organizations said, no way, no how, there'll never be women fighters, there'll never be this. And now a couple of them work out at your gym. Some of the most exciting fights in jiu-jitsu, in UFC, in MMA are women. So, I mean, you've seen over your career this evolution of like the women going from not allowed to afterthought to big money to like, oh, these are actually some of the more exciting fights that I look forward to. Like, do you have any opinion or thought on that? I know one of them that trains at our gym, Casey. She unfortunately just had a knee injury. She's coming back. But tell us about the evolution of the women in combat sports.
Okay, well, I mean, pretty much in every single sport, I'll tell you the women's sports that I like. I like women's tennis, women's soccer, women's golf, and I like women's MMA. Most of the other sports look like men's sports, they're men's sports that are trying to be women's sports, and it just looks weird. Like women's basketball is so boring to me. Like, yeah. I don't like it, right?
It's too slow for me.
I don't like softball. Volleyball is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I think...
especially beach volleyball.
Yeah, right? Women's soccer is really awesome. Like, I love watching Team USA play soccer. Those girls are super great. Tennis, it looks good. Like, those girls can move, and they're really good. And so there's an optics problem when a men's sport becomes a woman's sport typically. And I think that's what Dana White might have been worried about. And maybe it was like a little chauvinist thing, but I'm a professional girl dad. I have only daughters. And just kind of like as a reference, some of the fighters that I've coached, obviously the current champion, Carla Esparza, she was one of my fighters. Ashley Evans Smith, Jessica Rose Clark, Casey O'Neill, Kira Batara. I've had so many girl fighters, and like other ones too that are like lower level that people probably don't know about. And I've always been rooting for it because I think that they deserve an opportunity, and I think there's a huge market for it. I mean, there's more women on the planet than men, right? Yep. So it just makes sense. I feel like the Ronda Rousey years were pretty bad look just because they weren't well-rounded. It looked like 1995 men's MMA, you know, right. Like you had specialists, you had a boxer, and then you had Ronda, who was a jiu-jitsu girl. And then once that power band kicked in and the sport started to catch up, and then you had like Amanda Nunes.
She's a scary.
It's just like, dude, she's fighting like a guy. Like and then also like Valentina and Andy sparred like way back in the day, and Valentina head kicked him and almost knocked him out. Yeah. Like he said it's the hardest head kick that he's ever been by a girl. And Casey O'Neill's pretty damn impressive. Like she's got the mindset that it takes. You know, I had Cynthia Calvillo too. But you know, I think Casey's the future. I actually think that like in the next couple of years, there's going to be like very little difference. There's going to be a little bit of a speed difference, you know, and a strength difference. But technically, like Casey's starting to catch up with like all the guys.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then my daughter, you know, like these girls my daughter's going to come out of college. She told me this summer she wants to fight. And I was just like, she's going to be a physical therapist. So as soon as she gets her doctorate and she's a physical therapist, she can do whatever she wants. But I'm like, no fighting until then. And no
ruining your brain to get to college.
Yeah, it'd be really neat if you used your brain to make money. Like, I don't want you using your back or fighting, you know? Like, don't do that. Like, do something else.
Yeah.
But she's like, I think I want to just try it like once. And I'm like, but that's the problem. There never is just once, because you're going to go fight on an Indian reservation somewhere and you're going to smoke somebody and you're going to be unsatisfied. And then you're going to be like, hey, I want to do it again just because I want the challenge. I mean, that's what everybody wants.
Right. Right. A buddy of mine who I wrestled with in high school, one of the most just naturally strong human beings I've ever met. He said the greatest thing that ever happened to him was he lost his first MMA fight because he was a standout wrestler, wrestled at Bakersfield, smoked a little too much weed and got in trouble and didn't get to go to like transfer to a big boy Division I school in like the Big Ten. But he goes, the best thing that happened to me is I got pounded on in my first MMA fight and went back to college and finished and became a teacher and a wrestling coach. He's like, had I won that first fight, like my life would have gone down that path and I would have been doing that fighter life. And he's very self-aware. He's like, probably never would have put in the work to get world class to get to like UFC or something like that. He's very thankful he got destroyed on the fairgrounds in Antelope Valley that first fight. Because it made sure he didn't come through. I just want to know what are you looking forward to, man? Like what's coming up for you either professionally, personally, in the sport? Like what are you excited about?
Oh man, I mean, I'm always moving. We've always got a lot of things going on. Some of the business stuff that we're working on is we have an auto rental company here in town, and we're up to 22 cars already. So like we're really gonna start ramping that up, and it's actually changing gears right now to more of like a tax write-off type of thing. That's really interesting. And then obviously, like, I want to see Andy succeed in this. So like everybody's like full attention and push is like behind him to actually like make some real noise. And I like to develop business with students. That's like, so I have a guy, I won't name his name here either, but he's here local in town, and he's kind of inspired me. During COVID, I offloaded a lot of gyms. I just gave them up. No, like, everybody thinks I'm crazy. My tax guy thinks I'm nuts. I literally walked away from like a lot of business, just like, hey guys, just keep this. You guys focus on what you're doing. And but now we got through all of that. I'm really looking at like kind of building this again, but doing it a little different with more of a team behind to like help manage the day-to-day and kind of run it more like a corporation. And so there's just a lot of stuff. And then caddying, I love caddying my daughter. It's so much fun. I mean, we're really traveling a lot now, so
I see you out on the golf course on Instagram all the time, and all I can think about is like, this poor bastard. Like, I know his knees and back and everything hurt just like mine, and he works out in the morning, and then he works out in the afternoon, and then he goes and walks 18 holes with his daughter carrying her clubs.
Dude.
I'm like, I know there's no better feeling because your daughter's thriving, but that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, it is. But you know, I look at it like this, like I grew up a Catholic, like very religious guy. And I look at like eternal life for me, the way that I see it is like, how many generations will my teachings live on beyond me? And so I have this compulsion to be an excellent father. Like it's so crazy. And so like I am tired and my knees hurt and I get home and all I want to do is sit down. And then Charlie comes up to me and she's like, Dad, let's go play. And I'm like, all right. And I just get up. And so like being lazy just doesn't exist to me. Like, I don't understand it. Like, I can't understand how someone could just sit and waste away. And it's like, anytime my kids want to do something, we just go and do it, right? We're going to figure it out. We're going to go. And I don't know anything about golf. I mean, I didn't know anything about golf. I know a lot about golf. And, we just did the World Championships in Pinehurst. She's 7 years old. It was a 3-day event. Here's the coolest story about my 7-year-old, man. She's special. We flew in Sunday night, woke up Monday morning. We played golf all day Monday, all day Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the tournament started Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then so she played 3 days. We woke up at 2 a.m. on Saturday night in North Carolina. My daughter did not go back to sleep. We drove an hour and a half to the airport to Raleigh. We flew home. We landed here, went to the house, like cleaned up a little bit, and there was the Las Vegas Summer Tour final was Sunday afternoon. And I was like, hey, do you want to go play? And she's like, yeah, let's go play. And then we went and she won that tournament on 0 sleep.
Holy shit.
Yeah, 7 years old.
And I know you. This wasn't you being the crazy softball parent. Let's go. We got to
I wanted her to say no. I wanted to go. I wanted to take a nap. And she's stone cold. And when we're out on the golf course, like she's ice cold. Like it's nuts. It's really crazy. Like,
oh man, at 7 years old.
Yeah.
Wonder where she gets that.
I don't know. You know what? I'm not as competitive as she is. Like for me, I'm a better coach than I ever was like a competitor, because winning and losing didn't really mean shit to me. It's just like the journey was everything to me. The winning and losing, you take it in stride, right? Andy, on the other hand, it's all about winning.
Yeah.
All about winning. And I noticed that the outliers in the competitive realm, that's what it is.
Yeah, they really hate losing.
And guys that are balanced just don't exist in that realm. And I'm pretty well balanced, right? And then I look at my daughter, Charlie, and she's a sweetie. She's like a love bug, right? But if I was like, hey, here's a knife. You see that person over there? Stab them in the neck and you'll win this tournament. She'd be like, all right. And she would go in there and just get to work. Like she's stone cold killer. It's nuts. And I don't push her, I encourage her and it's, I know better. Like I want her to golf forever, so I'm not going to push her too hard.
Right.
So I just, hey, you want to golf? Yeah. Or I won't say nothing. And then she's like, let's golf. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. Oh. And the other way was with my 20-year-old with wrestling. It was like, listen, I don't care what you do, but I took her to Dick's Sporting Goods and we walked around, and this was 8th grade year going into freshman year. and she was going to have to wrestle on the boys' side because they had no girls wrestling. And I took her to Dick's, and it's huge. The one here in Henderson is giant. And I was like, look around.
Yeah, it's like 2 stories, like 100,000 square feet. It's the biggest store in the mall.
Yeah, and I was like, look around. What do you see? And she's like, she didn't really understand the question. And I was like, well, like, what sports do you see? And I like pointed at the wall. She's all track. There's like a lot of running shoes and track. And I'm like, okay, how about over there? And she's like, football. And I'm like, how about over there? And she's like, baseball, basketball. And then I took her, I had looked there prior, so I knew where the wrestling section was. It's not even, doesn't even warrant a section.
Yeah, it's like 4 shoes.
Yeah, it's like 2, at the time it was like 2 shoes and 2 different types of headgear. And I was like, this is wrestling. They get 3 square feet in this entire mall, in this entire store. Why? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, because it's hard. I'm like, that's why you need to do it. You're the oldest kid, and one day I'm going to be gone. And I need to know that you're battle tested, and I need to know that you can grind, and no one can wrestle. No one can do it. It's hard. And that's why there's all these other sports get all this other square footage, and wrestling gets this much because such a small percentage of people can do this. And this is why you're going to be the leader of the family when I'm gone. I have no sons. It's just her. And she just looked at me and was like, I understand. Okay. That's it. And I just know that Abigail, she had to get pushed, whereas Charlie doesn't need to get pushed. She's self-motivated on that. But Abigail understands the mission, and she's going to be able to outgrind anybody. There's no one that's going to outwork her. Nobody.
She's going to have to marry the baddest ass dude, or he's just going to be so intimidated.
Dude, her and Spencer are dating.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
How crazy is that?
That makes a lot of sense.
I was like, you guys are nuts because, first of all, like, this is my right-hand guy.
Right.
You're my daughter. So, like, if you guys break up, I'm going to take a bat to you. You know, it's so crazy. I mean, I don't know, but.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, because Spencer's a good kid.
Yeah, he's a good kid. I love him.
And he's super good looking. Like,
yeah.
It's so funny. You posted some picture. It was like Andy shirtless, just looking ripped as fuck. And then Spencer just looks like he should be on like a Beach Boys album cover, just the best looking kid ever. My wife turned to me and she's like, I don't think you're doing jiu-jitsu the right way. Like, why don't you look like one of these guys? I was like, fuck you, honey.
Yeah, yeah. Hey.
Luckily I have other talents other than looking like a superstar in jiu-jitsu. Well, Coach, man, I really appreciate you being in here. Now that I know you're looking for business ventures, it planted a seed that we'll have to do something together at some point in the future. But
I'm down.
I appreciate the talk. And after Andy wins ADCC, we'll set up a third mic and we'll have both you guys in here for the interview.
That'd be awesome. Let's do it.
Where do people find you, man, if they want to follow along?
The easiest way is Coach Casey 10 on Instagram. I mean, I'm running the account, so if anybody wants to reach out, just DM me there. Also, too, I have a YouTube channel, Casey Halstead. It's got like some of my philosophies. They're a little outdated. I haven't been very active on it, but it kind of will give you some insight on the way that I think. And that's pretty much it.
By the way, some of your insight, one of the first classes I came to in the morning, and then I've been coming to the evening classes because it works out better with my kids. But one of the first morning classes I came to, I'll never forget this. I got a buddy who wrote the book, The Miracle Morning, and he's very much like positivity, abundance. You know, it's all about getting up in the morning, starting your day right. But you get him alone, and he'll give you the unadulterated version of how he thinks about people that don't get up. But, you know, his public persona is like very positive. Like,
Sure.
you never say anything negative. I come to one of your first classes and you're like, by the way, motherfuckers, if you're the type of person that hits your snooze button 7 times, you're also probably the same motherfucker that's not paying your insurance bill. You probably also don't put out at work, and you're just a lazy mother. Just fucking end. Just cancel your gym membership right now if you're the type of person that hits the snooze button 12 times, because I know you're also not paying your insurance, and I don't want you in my gym. And I was like, I love this guy, dude. This is like my kind of place.
That's so funny. I don't remember that exact speech, but that sounds exactly like something I would say.
Totally, man. All right, dude. We'll have you back after ADCC.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Thanks, man.